So welcome to my podcast again, guys, and today I'm going to be exploring something that's really, really cool. It's the power of intention. Now, most of the time when people use the power of intention, it's about creating or manifesting something that we want. And I'm not going to do that. I'm turning that on its head. And the end result, if you can understand and apply this to your life, is the ability to feel joy within yourself, no matter what's happening on the outside. It's empowerment to the nth degree. It's truly taking personal power for your experience of the world. Now, how do you do that? Okay? How do we experience the world? Okay, we experience them through thoughts, feelings, sensations. So these are the three things that are constantly changing. Sensations can be pain, pleasure. They can be the five senses. Feelings, they can be anything from hopelessness, despair, and shame, and some very dark emotions. Or they can be joy and excitement and hope. And there's a full array of emotions that come and go in our experience. And then there are thoughts, which often are flickering around in our heads very, very quickly. So all of these three things are constantly changing in our life. So the point here is that who's aware of that? And how do we intend to relate and meet those thoughts, those feelings, and those sensations? And that's our power. That's how we can respond rather than react. And responsibility is all about responding. How can we respond to a thought? How can we respond to a feeling? How can we respond to a sensation? So let's say, for example, that there's some bad news and there's this feeling of intense sadness. Intense sadness on the inside, and no matter what we do, whether it's reading a book or getting distracted or trying to do something else, this feeling of sadness is there. And often what people do is they repress, they push it away, they get busy, and they move away from that sadness, and they're not fully themselves anymore. This is very, very common, especially for emotions that are very difficult, like loss, sadness, rage. So, rather than doing that, rather than pushing away from it, I'm going to invite you to step into it, but step into it with a certain intention, with a certain quality of being. So one of my favorites is joy. How can I meet that sadness with joy? And when my joy meets that sadness, very often there's tears. And those tears are bittersweet, because there's something within that sadness that's profoundly beautiful and also profoundly painful. And it takes courage to really go into that sadness, to go into the fear of loss, the fear of sadness, this is an opportunity for you to explore how you wish to engage with the world. Most of the time, especially in the spiritual community, the focus is on how do we create an outcome that we want. And seldom it's about how do we meet the world as it is. How do we meet the world as it is rather than how we want it to be? That is empowering. How do we feel joy within ourselves, irrespective of whether we get the things that we want? So we're not happy only when the toy arrives, the car arrives, our partners arrive, and there are these moments, these little Christmas moments that elate us because we get what we want. No, I'm talking about owning our inner happiness, our inner joy, and not making it dependent on something on the outside. That's not to say it's not beautiful to have these gifts, but isn't it better to become the orange rather than just bite at it slowly, or chocolate? Rather than having little snippets of chocolate, why don't you just become chocolate? This is something that has always interested me, and that I've always wanted to dig really deep into the source of my own joy. But it doesn't have to be joy. We can meet the world with curiosity, with gratitude, with even anger. Whatever it is has a consequence. And I would recommend joy or gratitude. These are the two go-to ways of meeting the world as it is. So my invitation to you now for the next week, if you're up for it, if you're interested, is to experiment. What does it mean? What would it be like for you to meet the world with whatever it is that you want to meet the world with? Try joy. If there's a thought that comes, meet it with joy. If there's an emotion that comes, meet it with joy. If there's bad news, meet it with joy. And that joy, when it meets that difficult emotion, creates an alchemical transformation. And then when we know that our personal power can transform how we experience the world, fear then transforms into excitement, into a willingness to play, whether it's dark or light, where we can stand on our 2 feet and rather than contract, we can engage, even in times of crisis. As for me, some of the most challenging things I've been through, and for those of you who know me will know this, that I've been through cancer, a life-threatening injury that left me in bed for a year, existential melancholy, extreme sadness, betrayal, fear, paralyzing fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of abandonment. And what worked and what works for me as I engage life, and what has helped me get through these challenges, is realizing and unlocking my personal power. So that when these difficult things come, there's a way through. Not around, not away from, but through. So that whatever it is that is in my control, I'm 100%. And you can be 100%. And if it's not in our control, we can surrender. The serenity of realizing what's beyond our control. And then there's the wisdom to tell the difference between what we can do and what we can't. So I invite you to go on a little journey this week, if you're up for it, and explore the power of intention. How to meet the world. Just like a tree that remains strong in spite of the wind, this intention can be that strong as well. How do you choose to meet every day? The morning, how you brush your teeth, how you eat breakfast, how you greet people, how you take news, good news, bad news, how you use your time, how you organize your schedule, how do you manage disagreement and argument? How do you compliment and celebrate the people around you? How are you meeting the world? How do you wish to meet the world? Okay? Reclaiming your personal power. So I leave that with you and speak to you soon.